Hey, this is Notser, and today we're taking a look at the public test server. This is 8.0, round 3 testing. Premium aircraft carriers are available to CCs and super testers. They are work in progress, and the stats are not final. My plan is to release a video for each one. First one up is the Tier 8 American premium aircraft carrier, Saipan. We're on the map Estuary, and I'm top tier in the most ridiculous sense. I wanted to share this game because this is an example of extremes. I'm a Tier 8 premium aircraft carrier with Tier 10 aircraft. That's sort of the unique feature of the Saipan, always has. The only difference is it was a Tier 7 with Tier 9 aircraft. When it had to be jumped up to Tier 8, well, they gave us Tier 10. But my opposition, it's a bunch of Tier 6s. This is the best matchmaking that you could ever possibly get in the Saipan. And it's going to show. This is going to be a ridiculous game. My first squadron, though, it's my attack rockets. I really appreciate the American attack rocket system. They are very consistent with their accuracy towards targets. And the Saipan leans towards the smaller number, more accurate vibe that I really appreciate about other loadouts. There's very limited loadout adjustment. That is one disappointment for players. If you don't like this loadout that you're about to see an example of for each squadron, you're not going to like the Saipan, because that's literally the only option you have. You can't choose an alternative loadout that has a giant, dive bombing squadron or a huge fighter loadout. No. This is all you get. So we use the attack squadron. Pretty accurate. I like how the bloom shrinks down, and I like the size of the squadron, honestly, because you still have the ability to do damage to the target, but you have the small, accurate features that are so appealing, especially for someone like me going up against enemy DDs. So we spotted this DD. Obviously, we got a little bit of chip damage. He's hiding in a smoke. I'm trying to get a nice attack run on him. And I think, unfortunately, I narrow it just a little bit too much. He was to the right of that smoke, and I think the torpedoes are actually going to miss him. But these are Tier 10 torpedoes with Tier 10 hit points and speed and firepower, everything that you expect. It's incredibly devastating towards the Tier 6s. In this game, I will end up feeling like I have no opposition, because the flak is so easy to dodge. I'm someone who's already very comfortable dodging it, and playing with my throttle, it works out beautifully. However, the weaknesses of the Saipan are the following. The squadron size is pathetic. If you sustain heavy losses, you will basically have nothing you can do against the enemy. You don't have a large hangar that you can store up. You only have enough for, twice the size. And if you start taking 2 and 3 aircraft each run, it's going to be a real chore. Restoration time on this ship is terrible. And for anyone who's sort of confused or doesn't understand the system because they haven't had a chance to play it, every aircraft carrier has an unlimited amount of aircraft if the game would go an infinite amount of time. There's a finite amount of aircraft that could theoretically be restored. And restoration is important if you take losses. Not necessarily, having a successful squadron drop and sending it back. You're not taking any losses for that. But if a AA flak burst or something actually lands and takes out an aircraft, it's going to take a long time to restore that. Normally, the restoration isn't too long, but on the Saipan specifically, it's pretty egregious. It's like horrendous. Because they're obviously Tier 10 aircraft, you have to have a downside. Another downside to the Saipan that I found, its AA protection is terrible. It has a maximum AA range of 3.5 kilometers. It doesn't even have long-range AA. There is no long-range flak for this. It's medium and short. So once players recognize that the vulnerability is with the ship itself, I think you can expect a lot of CV sniping going on with the Saipan. Because if you let the Saipan do what it's going to do in this game, you might as well just give the Saipan the win. It's a CV in a situation that can single-handedly carry. And I know some people were like, oh, well, aircraft carrier, they're too powerful. Part of the reason why we're doing the CV rework is to lower their power. I kind of feel like that hasn't been successful. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I still feel like aircraft carriers can run circles around everyone. And they really don't care about anyone. See, I made a huge mistake. I sailed too far forward to aggressively be in position, and the Bayern is able to punish me. 50% of my life gone at a single salvo, and I'm trying to use my attack rockets to effectively kill him before he gets another salvo off, because, spoiler alert, if he does, and it has the same impact, I'm dead. So this is very, very, very important that I land these rockets on the superstructure, which we're doing a good job. Here comes incoming AP, and the Bayern lets him down. Completely inaccurate, and now this is just up to me. Just maintain accurate, clean drop. Looks good, feels good. Completely invulnerable feeling of the aircraft. They didn't sustain any losses, and I easily took out the target. Tier 10 aircraft, they just fly circles around these Tier 6s. And, this is the same issue that existed with the Saipan back in the day. As a Tier 7 with Tier 9 aircraft, the opposition couldn't really deal with you. You were so fast and so agile, you did so much damage that it was near impossible to actually feel like you're weathering the Saipan storm at times. And the same feelings here too. And look at this, look at this. This is a light cruiser. Obviously, it's a bot, but I am able to drop close enough, and the torpedoes are fast enough that we were able to devastating strike the Dallas. He was at like 80% life, but I was sort of told that, aircraft carriers are not going to have as much alpha as they once did. Well, 1/3 of the squadron was enough to wipe that Dallas out. I'm sure many players would not like that, considering they talked about the alpha being reduced so that stuff just like that is completely avoided. We don't want aircraft carriers who can literally one-shot ships. That just is... that's the whole point of the whole CV rework. They're trying to make it function. Now, yeah, these players are bots. They don't have commanders invested in AA. And honestly, they're not good. They're not good players either. But the flak is the flak. And if you can dodge the flak, you're pretty much going to be able to dodge any aircraft being wiped down. Maybe if there's double layered continuous damage, you could see losses. But in scenarios like this, when enemies are self-isolating, and yeah, you could say, oh, well, when it goes live, players are going to be less likely to make these simple mistakes. They're going to make these simple mistakes because they're not going to want to stick to their team, or they're not going to want to invest in AA protection. I don't see a scenario where the Saipan isn't completely dominant. I really feel like the only hope for anyone against the Saipan in this scenario is for the opposition aircraft carrier to snipe the Saipan. I have tried with my destroyers, cruisers, and battleships to hunt down and eliminate carriers, but they're always the last ones to die. They always figure out a way to avoid contact, and yet the impact they have is extensive. I have real concerns that the Saipan is just too good, and players are too good at taking advantage of all the strengths. It's just really easy to be really effective in this. Now, yeah, these are bots, and they don't have anything spec'd in anything. They're just mediocre at best with their AA protection. But flak is still flak, and if you dodge flak, you pretty much have no way of losing these squadrons fast enough. So I have real concerns that the Saipan is just going to exist in a state that's just a little too effective. But if the Saipan in its previous version existed in this similar state, is it fair for them to nerf it completely? I think Wargaming is banking on just the vulnerabilities being so obvious that players will always go for that. You know, the opposition CV is going to snipe. But he should. That's the vulnerability with this ship. I don't feel like there's any more legitimate vulnerabilities available to the opposition to take advantage of. The ship itself is the weakest point, by far. It's a night and day difference attacking the Midway versus attacking the Saipan. So, you know, the strengths and weaknesses are laid out there. I feel like the Saipan clearly is very effective, especially against low tier. It's egregiously OP against low tiers. But once the player base learns to incorporate sector control in every single, engagement, once the player base invests in AA a little bit more, if they feel a vulnerability. Oh yeah, Hermione, one of my cats, she joins us on stream all the time. She rested her head on the M key and brought up the map. It threw off the attack, but we still are going to hit a torp on the bow. Doesn't cause a flood. That's where you want the torpedoes to make contact if you're, what should I be looking to do if I'm min-maxing every moment? You want your torpedoes to obviously make contact with the enemy ship, but you also want one or two of those torpedoes to make contact with the bow or the stern. They have reduced protection from flood, and that's really your bread and butter. We end up getting a flood, but we also end up killing the target with our attack. Now, the Saipan is absolutely ridiculous, but I think the Saipan is ridiculous also because of the build path I've gone. Oh yeah, the red flak is defensive fire. The bots can still use defensive fire. I think they honestly try to use sectors. They're not very good at it. We get a couple torpedo hits, and that's awesome. But yeah, the Saipan build that I've chosen is very min-maxy to the Saipan. Now, I love this build across the board, but especially for the Saipan, it's a huge benefit. So one of the first skills I've taken is Last Gasp. This is the one that replenishes your boost fully on the final wave of squadron. For the Saipan, you have 3 waves. So on the first and the second, you use your boost that you spawn with, which is at full, and then immediately on the third one, you have full boost once again. Boost is an incredibly important resource. You can kind of see the boost indicator near the speed of the aircraft. What boost allows me to do, any flak that I can't dodge out of the way of, I can air brake or speed through with boost. And that is an important resource because I don't want to lose any of my aircraft. So Last Gasp, very powerful for the Saipan. I'm also using torpedo acceleration. I think torpedo acceleration works very well for the Americans because they're sort of a blunt object torpedo send. They really are looking to just have the torpedoes hit the target. And yes, it changes the activation time. It's a little bit more extended out. But note, I've hit a lot of torpedoes on fast ships like light cruisers and destroyers. It makes it just an easier experience for me as a player. I have the hit points, survivability expert. I also have aircraft armor. I'm using the sight stabilization skill. This is a level 4 skill that improves the speed of aiming. And then on top of that, I am just really comfortable with the mechanics of the game. So I have min-maxed even the commander build to work very well with Saipan. But I think players are going to be able to do that, and I'm going to provide that service for all of you. So it's not like it's going to be, some Indiana Jones undiscovered treasure. Everyone's going to know that this is what works with the Saipan. And note that I haven't really had to do much in the way of defending my team. I should have done more of that. But I alone can easily kill off the enemy team. The Saipan is just a little too strong. In the right kind of hands, I don't know that you want an aircraft carrier that has this kind of impact. It just feels like it's RTS 2.0. You are the only one that matters. No one else in the game matters. It's all on you, and you can totally handle it. You've got really fast attacks, and they come out really often. I don't really know what else to say. A skilled player can just run circles around the opposition with a Saipan. Hopefully we can get a torpedo hit on this guy. It looks like he might sail into him. And yeah, he does. We earn Kraken Unleash. Man, it's really powerful, isn't it? It's a really powerful experience. I obviously enjoy it. Other changes that they've made to the system that you might have noticed in this video. Defensive fire is red, flak. We've got an indicator for enhanced sector. The tracer will look like it's yellow if the sector is doing more damage. Otherwise, I think it's just white. They didn't really put a color for the weak side. They just put color for the enhanced side. Look at the torpedoes. Look at it. Torpedo acceleration is great. It helps make the torpedoes easily hit the target, always. I don't know if I need it, honestly, but I just want to make sure you understand that's the build. Other things they've changed. Note in the top right corner, there is an indicator for the damage you've done to aircraft. And it's a ticking damage counter. This is how much you've contributed overall. It could be your AA system. It could be fighters that you place in the world. It could also be, you know, from a battleship point of view, it could be the catapult fighter. It's a great little tool to know just how impactful you are from an AA standpoint. I've got games where I'm in a Minotaur or a Gearing and I've done 40 or 50,000 damage to aircraft. Definitely noticeable, and it's definitely going to be something that we are going to watch as a stat to gauge whether the ships are actually effective at fighting aircraft. But all we've got left is the Lexington. Now this is going to be sort of an example of the Saipan attacking an equal tier AA system. Plus it's going to have fighters. There's a lot that the opponent can do to impact the way this plays out. Obviously the Lexington, he's new to the game or new to the CV rework. He couldn't be counterplay. But the fighters, very effective at knocking out my squadron. As we go back, my hangar space is a concern. I have just enough for one more full attack squadron of rockets. If I then were to take a significant loss, my attack rockets would suffer. So, the Saipan, definitely strong, and definitely should do exactly what I did in this game. Pick on all of the tier 6s. I honestly feel if I would have gone after the Lexington early on, I would have had almost no impact on this game because I would have sustained too many losses and I couldn't recover. Recovery is the weak point on the Saipan. AA is the weak point on the Saipan. And it really shows. It really shows when players are actually aware of those weaknesses and exploit them. Every single premium that I've tested has very clear strengths and weaknesses, and they're very different from the main line, and that's exciting. I love that Wargaming has done this to the Saipan. I love how the Golaf Zeppelin, the Enterprise, the Kaga feel. Obviously those videos are for later, but look, I'm just trying to mitigate the flak burst. There is a fighter overhead that is absolutely a concern. They did change the fighter to have charges now. So, you know, if the aircraft carrier is effective at weathering the storm, but still sustaining fighter losses, he will eventually have no fighter for defense, and that's a different change from Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 1 and Phase 2, you had unlimited fighters that would always scramble. Not the case anymore. You have 4 by default, or 5 if you are investing in the extra charge, the superintendent skill. It's funny because it's the only thing the superintendent skill does now. It doesn't do anything else for aircraft carriers but provide that extra fighter support. But clearly, I didn't have to go after the Lexington. I took out his support staff and we won the game. I think players are going to be required to look at the game a little bit more like that. You know, potential targets, what I'm effective against, what I'm not effective against, and just go from there. And you really can't change from that. Otherwise, you're going to be less impactful, you know? And that's good. That's good that there is something that is vulnerable to a focus fire or invulnerable. And you might have noticed I was trying to boost my way all the way to the Lexington in time to get that final drop and kill him. We weren't successful, but the game itself was outstanding. I know it's against bots, but still, Tier 10 aircraft against Tier 6s feels pretty good. Feels outstanding even, and probably needs to be dialed back. Leave in the comments what you think. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.